Good evening. How are you? Well, Thomas Jefferson has a good report this evening. It's 79 degrees right now. The humidity is up. It's like 60. And the wind is at 0.6 miles an hour. I kid you not. At least where I am, that's what they're saying. I wanted to visit how Trump is the way he is, who he is. And the name calling reflects, I guess, a visceral reaction to the terrible things he does. And if you are what you do, that tells us a lot about the internal being. But there's a large number of people, religious or not, who have standards of conduct, and they think it matters. And not all of them believe there's any afterlife. And I'll get to that, why I think that's important. There are some, Elaine is a Frenchman who said, prayer is when night descends in thought. And so that's a very strong view about prayer. I mean, I don't think of it as prayer. If I think about something, it's a meditation. So it is about thought. But we've heard Rudy Giuliani say, and I believe this is Trump's view as well, that it doesn't matter what he does because he dies and it's over. So he intends to get whatever he can get in this world. Now, I don't disagree with the fact that our life ends with a full stop, not a pause with eternity afterwards. But however you think of what this life is about, it's a very different kind of life if you believe there's nothing, no reason in this world while you're alive that requires you to do anything. Now, there are glimpses, and I think you're going to find that you're with me on this. There are glimpses into the lack of character as most people define it, whether or not they believe in an afterlife. And I think that this is a critical element of the failure of Trump or Giuliani or any of these people to give a damn about the rest of us. So when Trump is referring to Hannibal Lecter, is that sui generis, meaning of the same sort of reference he makes to dictators? Now some have said, who is he casting about as Hannibal Lecter? And I don't know why anybody isn't looking at him as envisioning himself as Hannibal Lecter. And there's a little bit of the Walter Mitty in this, meaning taking on this dramatic role, destroyer of worlds. In his Walter Mitty kind of mind, that's I think who he thinks he is, but he's really a coward. And I think that his withdrawal that we're witnessing recently is not just about the changes in who's running for what, but it is about him coming to grips with his own mortality, because he knows and believes there's nothing afterwards. And Hannibal Lecter is how he sees himself as so extreme a leader that he could contemplate a cannibalist with class as who he is. And he can say it out in the open, because he can say anything out in the open. Now, there's, increasingly I find myself thinking of Sartre and Camus and these people, because the nihilism they had was different than the nihilism that is our boy, Trump. And he's a boy. He's still a boy. You know, he's never gotten past that. And there is the notion that the certainty of a God-given meaning to life far surpasses in attractiveness the ability to behave badly with impunity. In other words, I mean, think about it. For those in which life is a transaction, if you think you're only being good so that you can go to heaven, and if it turns out that you believe the contrary, why would you be unconcerned about behaving badly? Because it's with impunity. You're not punished ever. There's no final judgment. I think that this insight into the nihilistic emptiness that is Trump and Giuliani and all these people that surround him, it all comes down to they see no advantage in being good. Nothing propels them toward it. Oh yeah, you've heard them talk about, you know, their belief in Jesus or God or something like that. Do you think that if anybody actually asked Trump what's in the Sermon on the Mount, he would know? Do you think he knows anything except it's very helpful if the religious are with you? So what are their issues? Very transactional. They've hit upon abortion. Bingo, I'm with them on that. They want the church involved in the government. Hey, whatever you want so I can get elected. Now, Trump has been attacking, and that's a strong word because he's really been meandering instead of attacking. And his meandering is to say, what is the economic program of Biden that's so hot? He's run the country into the ground. Now, does this guy read any newspapers? He must. He must know that what he said is nonsense. I think he's hoping that his megaphone is louder so that his lies can obscure the truth. Now, that's not an earth-shattering, news-breaking item, but it is for some, and it is that he does whatever he thinks will advance his own cause. So let's examine, and you know, we don't have time with the fire hose of lies he tells every day, but you know, he supposedly was focusing on the economy, and he was citing inflation. But if he read the current papers, we now have a 3-year low in inflation at 2.9%. Now, that is likely going to lead to reductions in the federal rates when the Federal Reserve looks at it. At the same time, even before we knew this, the mortgage applications were up last week dramatically. And it's been the lowest, well, the lowest interest rates in more than a year. And people are buying. So this is before the Federal Reserve acts that we're getting, that is before they lower the interest rate. This is what we're getting. So I'm not talking to us about pie in the sky. I'm talking to you about real numbers, real advances, and it's interesting. Trump knows this like nobody else maybe, because his business is debt. Amassing it, making it look like an asset, bragging about it, exaggerating it, putting himself in a position that the loan he has is so large that people have to keep readjusting the rates because it would bring them down. So He attacks Biden, he attacks Harris, and today they had a joint appearance that went over so well, and there are a whole variety of reasons besides affection and emotion. See, when we look at the team that is Biden and Harris, Harris and Biden, and Waltz, what we see is a tripartite exercise in long public service. Different ages, different positions sometimes, but still accountable, having said things and done things for most of their life, in a framework in which they're caring about their neighbors, their friends, the people in the precinct, in the congressional district, in the state, in the United States. That's who we have, who can go on forward with our government. So what did Joe and Kamala do today? What they did was they announced that the Department of Health and Human Services has negotiated a deal with pharma to reduce the cost of 10 drugs for a saving to the people of $1.5 billion. Biden said, this is about peace of mind, but it's also about security. The crowd cheered both of them, but they screamed, "Thank you, Joe." That's what good government is about. Not this bullshit, empty nonsense that Trump peddles to the world, thinking he has somewhere in that little tow truck behind him the kind of syrup that'll make you younger and smarter and prettier, extend your life, have people in your neighborhood respecting you. Because this man is Mr. Bullshit Man. There's nothing else about him. Now, the drop in prices ranges from a low of 38% among the 10 drugs to 79%. It involves all sorts of ailments that concern us, Americans. So that's pretty important. Now, this debate not only shows that we have the real deal when we're talking about Kamala and we're talking about Tim, but it also says something about Trump and about that bookend who serves as his vice president. And it's this. Through my lifetime, I have watched people who are, well, studied, if you will. There's an issue they get involved in and they grab onto it and they're obsessive and they won't let it go. Now, when I was a student at Columbia, there were demonstrations. Others called them student riots. And they divided the students into jocks and pukes. And I was a hybrid because I was a lettered swimmer and I was always cracking the books. When you update those kinds of people and you find them in public service, they are policy wonks. They are studying what's going on. So one of those people in a debate would know, A, it would be really good to help Americans if we could reduce the drugs they need to survive and to have a lifestyle that's more pleasant than not. So we have policy wonks. Trump's no policy wonk. He's a liar. He had to know the interest rates went down. He has to know that that hurts him as a candidate, particularly given his BS background as a businessman that we should honor and expect would triumph in America. Not so. But, you know, he says one day or 2 days ago that, what is net zero? He says he doesn't know what net zero is, which is one of two things. He really doesn't know when he should, and he's lying, which is probably more likely. And what net zero is about is to have zero greenhouse gases by 2030. So he doesn't know what that is. He also claims not to know what the 2025 fascist game plan is. Okay, let's for a moment just pretend he doesn't know what it is. As a candidate, it's a subject of discussion, and you don't know what it is, and you're not talking about what it is. So when push comes to shove, and we talk whether about the emotional choices between the two tickets, choosing these two shoddy con men on the Republican line, or these two public servants who have great ideas, have energy and zest, are kind of on the job even while they're running for office, there's no debate. And if I were advising Kamala, I'd say blow off this scurvy individual who wants to debate you, because he really doesn't want to debate you. He wants to create a show that he hopes will appear like he's debating, show that he has some qualities that might make him a better president if he knew anything, versus the real deal. So, I'm not the candidate, I'm not on the team in the sense of advising, but I think you should treat this guy for what he is, a criminal. Now, he has just lost his opportunity to change judges again, and he's asking the judge to delay sentencing in his hush money convictions until after the election. I would not in a million years do that. I don't know what the judge will do. I don't know what false sense of duty and responsibility he may feel he has. But this is the price Trump pays for having delayed in every way possible. That's how I see it. So, that's what I got. And thank you for joining me in my cathedral of trees. And with any luck, I'll be out again tomorrow. Bye-bye.